Discover how a new cleaning lady sparked an incredible transformation in 6-year-old twins' lives. Sarah swung open the door to her suburban home, the familiar scent of takeout mingling with the scent of fresh laundry, a constant reminder of the chaos that filled her life. Behind her, the weight of the day crashed in, long, exhausting hours spent tending to patients. The twins, restless and boisterous, raced past her with their toy trucks, revving engines and embodying the very energy she seemed to lack. She felt like a ghost, haunted by the ever-piling bills and absent father. It was hardly a home, it was survival. With her brow furrowed and muscle tension gripped in her shoulders, Sarah knew she needed help. Rosa, the immigrant cleaning lady she hired to restore some order in their lives, was her answer, though part of her winced against her own paradox of privilege. Having someone else in their space felt risky. After all, where was the line between needing help and being reliant on it? Still, she signed that check, hoping it would yield something brighter than despair, longing for the calm it might bring amid the daily grind. At first, Emma and Jake eyed Rosa with skepticism. The twins were accustomed to their waterslide of chaotic affection, and this stranger, albeit warm and gracious, was an unwelcome ripple in their family's pool. To their tender minds, the separation of us and them was stark, delineated clearly by walls that should not be breached. Yet, as the days wore on, something began to shift. Rosa's engaging stories, rich with vivid characters and journeys from her childhood in Mexico, drew the twins in like vines creeping toward sunlight. Their laughter bubbled over, the shadows of uncertainty lifting momentarily under the allure of shared narratives. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Emma, who wrestled daily with her reading struggles, found solace in Rosa's belief. The older woman patiently nurtured a connection to the words that danced tantalizingly just out of reach. In exchange, the twins began to help Rosa with her English, appraising each victory with uncontained joy. Mutual dependence sprouted, transforming their original wariness into fondness that tinged each shared experience with a familial quality. But where did this leave Sarah, who barely had enough energy to connect with her kids, let alone a stranger? As she stumbled upon their vibrant tutoring sessions one evening, a chilling wave of emotion washed over her. Fear coiled around her like a noose, tightening with thoughts of attachment and abandonment. Was Rosa a temporary figure that could vanish, leaving her children bereft when they were just beginning to flourish? Conflicted, her heart raced as she confronted the overwhelming truth. She was both grateful for Rosa's influence on Emma and Jake and fiercely protective of her family unit. Tension rocketed as Sarah's inner conflict intensified. Her insecurities danced dangerously close to the surface. Would she shelter her children from the potent lessons of resilience that Rosa shared? Or would she allow this unexpected bond to continue, threading their lives together in ways she could never have anticipated? Just as she contemplated the precarious balance between love, vulnerability, and fear, the doorbell rang. Her pulse quickened. What awaited her on the other side? A chance encounter that could unravel everything she thought she understood? The door creaked open, revealing Harold, the neighbor from across the street, a bulky figure with a warm smile that barely concealed the weight he carried in his eyes. It was the kind of invitation that layered uncertainty over the surface of her previous distractions. She had seen less of Harold since life had become a roller coaster of work and child-rearing. His presence stirred an unspoken reminder of community. It made her skin tingle with apprehension. Were they friends or merely acquaintances bound by proximity? "Hey, Sarah, is this a bad time?" he asked, glancing past her where the twins had momentarily paused in their play. The energy in the room flickered like a light bulb on the verge of burning out. "No, no, come in. Just got home from work," she stammered, stepping aside to permit him entry, even as her mind raced to justify the mess that lay scattered throughout the living room. As Harold settled into the couch, Sarah felt a pang of nostalgia mixed with envy at his perceived ease in life. He had a family, a steady job, and most importantly, stability, something she craved desperately. Yet, as words flowed over the coffee table laden with toy trucks and half-eaten snacks, Sarah found herself drawn into his stories of local happenings, which felt distant, unrelated to her spiraling reality. What struck her most, however, was not merely Harold's words, but the smoothness with which he articulated them, confident, at ease with his thoughts. She yearned for that fluency, a quality that seemed to have escaped her amidst the chaos. As she responded, faking nonchalance over how she felt about everything, distress piled on stress, she caught a glimpse of the twins engaged in their own quiet corner of happiness with Rosa. This realization opened a window of self-awareness. Sarah felt an urge to break free from the constraints that allowed her to flounder in a cycle of self-pity and overprotection. "Are you okay?" Harold's gentle inquiry shattered her reverie. His concern cut through her defenses, exposing the rawness she had successfully buried. "I'm fine," she replied instinctively, the words tasting bitter in her mouth. She knew better. She didn't want to be fine anymore. She projected distant assurance, but her body stiffened as he hesitated, clearly unconvinced. "Sometimes it helps to talk, you know." He trailed off, his voice a gentle nudge toward vulnerability. But fear pulled her back. What would she say? Would she risk admitting she felt like a foggy shade of who she once was? The thought spiraled within her, battling against the desire to connect and the fear of judgment. "I'll figure it out," she offered curtly, the reflexive response a dismissal of their moment. Yet deep down, she recognized the truth. She didn't want to figure it out alone. Her gaze darted toward Rosa, who played ever so patiently with Emma and Jake, and into that scene, insight crystallized. Maybe there was a lesson here, a shining thread of resilience woven by gratitude that she had overlooked. The door opened wide, daring her to leap into this new territory of confidence amidst the variables of her chaotic life. In a rush, Sarah stood up. "I think I need to do something different," she murmured, not entirely sure what it would entail, but resolute in her need for change. Harold looked at her, a glimmer of understanding flashing in his eyes. But before either could say more, the sound of laughter from the twins echoed through the space. It hung heavily in the air, a promise of growth that stretched beyond the moment, teasing Sarah's curiosity. What do I really want? She wondered. The possibility shimmered just out of reach, a doorway leading toward her family's future. With her heart racing in sync with newfound determination, a plan began to take shape. A potential pathway where dependency could transform into collaboration. What lay ahead, though? As her mind raced toward a decision, she heard the familiar twinkle of laughter turning into a question directed at her. "Mom, can you help us?" Her breath caught. It was an invitation into their world, one she felt gravitated toward. This moment could redefine everything. Would she dare to step into it, or would her fears hold her back? Sarah stood at the precipice of change, feeling the grip of anxiety clawing at her insides. The request from her children resonated deeply. "Mom, can you help us?" A beckoning she could no longer afford to dismiss. It was an opportunity, a chance to connect, to engage in a world where she once felt confident and vibrant before the routines of adulthood dulled her ambitions. "Sure, what do you need?" she replied, her voice steadier than the maelstrom inside her. She walked over to the twins, who looked at her expectantly, eyes wide with excitement, as if they sensed her internal shift toward an active role. Just like that, her resolve began to crystallize. She wouldn't hide from them or herself any longer. The twins wanted to build the tallest tower out of their colorful blocks, and Sarah felt an unexpected surge of enthusiasm. She knelt down beside them, her fingers brushing against the cool, smooth surfaces. They clustered around her, small hands eagerly reaching for pieces. With each block placed, the sensation of empowerment washed over her. The act of creation sparked a deep-seated drive within, a longing not merely to assist, but to lead. Engaging with Emma and Jake, Sarah began to articulate her thoughts more clearly, spurred on by their innocent curiosity. "If we layer the blocks like this, they can support each other better," she said, demonstrating how the broader pieces could serve as a foundation while narrower pieces formed the height. The moment felt like a leap into unknown territory. Her hands were shaking not from fear, but exhilaration. As they worked together, she noticed how her children thrived on positive reinforcement. Their laughter and shouts of joy filled the room, and each block stacked high became not just their achievement, but hers as well. The physical act of building mirrored the emotional reconstruction she desperately sought. With every triumphant, "Look, Mom," she felt layers of doubt peeling away. "Can we do something else after this?" Jake asked. His innocent request pulled at her heartstrings, reflecting a simple truth. Her children wanted her involved, wanted her to be part of their creative process. "What do you have in mind?" she countered, genuinely curious. "What if we painted? Can we do a rainbow?" Emma chimed in, eyes sparkling. The suggestion hung in the air, and Sarah felt a pulse of anxiety. Painting often resulted in chaos, messy fingers, and potential havoc. But just as quickly, she felt resolve solidifying. "Of course we can. Let's collect everything we need and make the best rainbow ever." With her decree, she ushered them into a new project, fully committing to it. As they gathered paints, brushes, and canvases, her mind churned with realizations. Each act of engagement chipped away at her insecurities. This journey wasn't merely a diversion, it was essential. They needed her, and in turn, she needed them. The dynamic was evolving, shifting from a mother burdened by chaos to one who reclaims joy and creativity. When the colors mixed and splattered across the canvas, Sarah felt free for the first time in ages. Every stroke represented reclamation of herself, of her role as a mother. The laughter that filled the space felt like a balm to her wounded spirit, or reassurance that connection could be forged and repaired. Hours later, the twins stood proudly beside their masterpiece. The vibrant colors reflected more than just a playful afternoon. They illustrated a newfound unity, a shared journey into reclaiming joy. Yet even amidst this victory, Sarah felt the unfurling tension of uncharted territories around her budding resolve. What about her professional aspirations? Could she balance her new commitment to her children with her own ambitions? The lingering questions peeked through the triumph, leaving her wondering how she could maintain this momentum. As the sun dipped below the horizon, she sat down with the twins, her heart full but her thoughts racing. "What's next for us, team?" asked, the words echoing her inner desire for collaboration and growth. The twins exchanged glances, and once again the simplicity of their joy pierced her heart. "Can we make a storybook?" they chirped in unison. In that moment, Sarah's breath caught again, not from fear, but anticipation. Could she embrace this next challenge, not just as their mother, but as a writer, a creator? She caught a glimpse of her reflection in the window, an evolving figure ready to confront both personal and professional awakenings. The ease of Harold's demeanor came back to her. She longed for that confident fluency, but what if she could discover her own? Thus, as twilight settled around them, she vowed to pursue her talents along her children's aspirations. Would the path ahead sustain them all? Each decision felt weighty, yet the prospect of growth was intoxicating. Sarah knew she had to venture deeper into her uncertainties. She took a deep breath and committed herself to the challenge. The moment of truth loomed on the horizon. Where would this new journey lead? The next morning, the sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, casting warm golden rays across the table where Sarah had left her sketchpad the night before. She hesitated, sipping her coffee while contemplating the blank page. It felt intimidating, that blankness echoing her own fears of inadequacy. She had committed to helping her children create a storybook, but uncertainty gnawed at her.
What if her creativity had dulled? What if she had nothing worthy to contribute? Yet, beneath that layer of anxiety, another emotion bubbled: anticipation. This was an opportunity to explore not just her children's imaginations, but her own. With a deep breath, Sarah set her cup down and picked up a pencil, allowing it to dance across the page. As she sketched, visions of whimsical characters sprang to life. It felt indulgent to dive into this world of make-believe, invigorating in a way she hadn't expected. Each stroke of the pencil was a step away from self-doubt. "Mom, what are you drawing?" Emma's voice sliced through her concentration, a mixture of curiosity and excitement. "A story about brave little animals," Sarah replied, her voice gaining strength. "Do you know what kind of adventure they might go on?" Jake plopped next to her, his eyes glinting. What if they find a treasure map? The suggestion lit a spark within her. Together, they began brainstorming. Ideas flowed like a vibrant river, characters morphing from animals to fantastical creatures. Each suggestion seemed to weave a stronger bond between them, fortifying Sarah's resolve to reawaken her own creativity. The twins were a source of inspiration, pushing her to step beyond the limits she had imposed upon herself. But as they delved deeper into their story, a hard truth emerged. She was terrified of public rejection. The prospect of sharing this creation outside their intimate circle felt monumental. Would anyone else see it as magical, or would her tentative attempts be met with the disdain she feared? The nagging voice of self-doubt resurfaced, wrapping around her like creeping vines, trying to choke her enthusiasm. "Mom, can we share the story outside?" Emma asked, waving her hands animatedly. "I want everyone to see our treasure." Sarah hesitated again, the weight of vulnerability pressing down. "We can think about it," she replied lightly, but inside her heart raced. Could she risk exposing her vulnerability in such a way? The suggestion forced her to confront a harsh reality. If she endured feedback, both positive and negative, it would serve as a catalyst for her growth. Yet the risk felt so daunting. These moments of conflicting emotions absorbed her until finally she stood resolute. "Let's focus on finishing the story first. We can plan how to share it afterward." Accepting this small victory ignited her determination. Perhaps sharing it outside could be a step forward for all of them, but first they needed a masterpiece worthy of their effort. Determination flooded her veins. As the days passed, the trio met in their makeshift creative space, pouring their hearts into every sentence, every illustration. Sarah transformed into a storyteller, molding their raw ideas into a cohesive narrative. The act of creating together solidified not only their bond, but unveiled facets of herself that she thought were long buried. Her confidence grew alongside her children's excitement. One evening, after wrapping up their latest session, a thought flickered in Sarah's mind. What if they included her own experiences in the story? It would make the adventure feel even more authentic. But then a wave of uncertainty crashed over her again. Was that too self-indulgent? Did she have the right to layer her adult fears and lessons onto their innocent creation? But realizing that her experiences could help the twins navigate similar challenges made her resolve stronger. She resolved that this story would be a reflection of them all, an amalgamation of their struggles, adventures, and joys. As they finalized their manuscript, an internal struggle clashed within her. Would sharing this story push her from behind the curtain of safety into the light of exposure? The tension within her soared. Tomorrow would be pivotal. They had a chance to show their work to friends and family. She clutched the pages tightly, fear and excitement intertwining as the twilight sky hinted at the unknown. What if, in facing the crowd, she discovered her voice anew? Would the twins see their mother's courage to embrace possibility? The moment felt electric, the potential for transformation hanging palpably in the air. Tomorrow's gathering would crack open doors long shut in her heart. But which way would she step, facing the uncertainty or retreating into the familiar shadows? The morning sun cast an invigorating glow through the kitchen as Sarah stirred her coffee. Today was not just another day. It was the first chance to share their creation. She felt the weight of the manuscript resting on the kitchen table, an obstacle and a beacon all at once. With every sip, she tried to quell
the rising tide of anxiety, focusing instead on the delight in her children's voices as they chattered excitedly about their treasure map characters. Yet today, the voices in her head seemed louder than usual, whispering doubts about her worthiness and both her role as a mother and a creator. What if she let them down? What if they forgot the story when they finally presented it? But as she glanced at Jake and Emma, their faces animated with anticipation, she felt a spark blossom deep within. Their enthusiasm ignited her own, and she recognized that they were collectively on the brink of something beautiful. With a determined nod, she gathered the pages of their story, feeling the texture of each sheet under her fingertips. It symbolized not just a narrative, but a journey, one of laughter, fear, and ultimately collaboration. As they prepared to leave, Sarah decided to seize the moment, to make this gathering not only a showcase of their work, but also a testament of her growth. At the meeting point, the atmosphere buzzed with a blend of excitement and nervous energy, palpable in the air. Friends and family filled the room, voices weaving through the space like threads in a fabric, ready to envelop their creation. Sarah could feel her heart thumping in sync with the chaos around them, a fearful rhythm reminding her of her vulnerability. "Do you think they'll like it?" she heard Emma whisper beside her. "They will," Sarah replied, forcing confidence into her tone, even as the tightness in her throat clawed at her. Her children needed reassurance, fragile and innocent as they were. Yet beneath her words lay an unconfessed worry. Could she bear the potential criticism of their work? What if they failed to shine like the stars she so desperately hoped they would? As they descended into the gathering, Sarah took a deep breath, grounding herself in the reality of the moment. This was not merely about showcasing their artistic effort, it was her confrontation with fear itself. Standing before this crowd, she would unveil a piece of her heart, exposing it to both admiration and the possibility of rejection. In her mind, that dichotomy thickened the atmosphere, casting shadows on her resolve. The moment came when they gathered everyone's attention. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she gripped the edges of the manuscript. She felt vulnerable, more so than she had felt during every brainstorming session, every late-night sketch. But then she glanced down at her twins, beaming with pride at what they had created together. They believed in the magic of their tale. Their confidence started spilling into her own wavering heart. Today, we want to share a story about bravery and adventure, a story about us. She paused, diving deeper into conviction. More than that, it's a story about facing fears and embracing adventure. Because sometimes, treasure isn't just found on maps, it's found within ourselves. For a heartbeat, silence enveloped the room. She could feel her palms sweat, her heart racing, but she pressed on. As they began to read, illustrating the treasure map with hand-drawn images animatedly crafted over the past weeks, Sarah's voice gained momentum, melding their collective nervousness into an infectious rhythm. After the story concluded, applause echoed, filling Sarah's chest with warmth. But before she could fully embrace the moment, the doubts lingered. What was this validation worth? Was the rush of applause enough to silence her inner critic, or did it simply highlight the fragility of public acceptance? As the gathering continued, Sarah began to engage with those who approached them. They praised the story, but also asked probing questions that sent splinters through the edifice she had so carefully begun to build. A lingering concern etched itself in her mind. Their positive reactions felt uplifting, yet she couldn't shake the fear of potential criticism that still loomed. How would she respond if the vulnerability she had just embraced was met with skepticism? Though illuminated by the smiles surrounding her, she couldn't escape her thoughts. Today had opened doors, unveiled parts of herself she was eager to explore. But could she move forward confidently, knowing she might face a different kind of crowd someday? One that could challenge everything she was beginning to believe about herself? Determined yet apprehensive,
Sarah realized that this was merely the beginning of her journey, a path she needed to traverse carefully yet boldly. With this new chapter unfurling, she felt an undercurrent of anticipation and anxiety. The horizon of her potential loomed ahead, vast and uncharted, waiting to be explored. But as she stood there, embraced by the warmth of encouragement, yet burdened by the weight of judgment, another thought emerged. How would she prepare for the real challenge of tomorrow? The following morning, sunlight spilled across Sarah's kitchen once again, illuminating the remnants of yesterday's excitement. The applause from their story presentation still echoed in her mind, blending with the morning chatter of her twins, who were already brainstorming ideas for their next adventure. Yet, amidst this whirlwind of creativity, Sarah felt a weight settle in her chest. Yesterday felt exhilarating, but today, uncertainty washed over her. As she prepared breakfast, she mulled over the conversation she'd had the evening before. People had praised their work, their creativity, yet a part of her remained restless. What if there was more to their story, untold and uncrafted? It was both exhilarating and intimidating, the idea that they could go even deeper, push their storytelling further. "Mom, can we do another treasure map?" Jake asked, his eyes bright with enthusiasm as he shoved a spoonful of cereal into his mouth. "Better than that," Sarah replied, her heart sparking at the possibility. "What if we could create a whole series? Each map could lead to different adventures." Both children gasped in delight, their ideas buzzing through the air like fireflies. Sarah's heart swelled at their excitement, but lurking beneath was the nagging voice questioning her capability to guide this new endeavor. Could
she really nurture their creativity while managing her own fears? Did she have the resilience needed to build something lasting? In that moment, a thought crystallized. This was not only about the children's growth. This was her own chance to stretch beyond the confines of her comfort zone. The idea hammered against her mind like a nail seeking purchase. She needed to face her fear of inadequacy, not merely in crafting stories, but in embracing the wildness of creativity that had flared up and threatened to overwhelm her. After breakfast, Sarah cleared the table, resolved to make the most of the sudden burst of inspiration. They transformed the living room into a creative workshop. With crayons, colored paper, and their eager dispositions, they began mapping out new adventures. Each image, every twist and turn of the story reinvigorated Sarah's spirit, pushing her past self-imposed barriers. As they worked, an unexpected presence interrupted their focused chaos. Their new cleaning lady, Maria. Sarah had hired her recently as a practical solution to time constraints, but today, Maria's energy filled the room. She moved gracefully, almost as if there was a rhythm to her actions, reminding Sarah of the importance of balance and the integration of life amid chaos. "Your children are lucky to have you involved in their creativity," Maria commented, her eyes crinkling into a smile as she adjusted a decorative pillow. "You should be proud of what they're learning from you." Such a simple comment stirred something deep within Sarah. For so long, she had worried about meeting expectations. But here was an outsider, someone unearthing elements of her growth she had not allowed herself to recognize. It sparked a revelation. What if she viewed this not as a burden, but as an opportunity? What if the fear of criticism transformed into a source of strength? Sarah could embrace this fascinating journey, not just as a mother, but as an artist, a guide who could lead her children into uncharted realms of imagination. With renewed fervor, she realized they could share stories about feelings too. Fear, joy, challenges, and triumphs, all seasoned with their imaginative twist. As they fleshed out their series, each plot point reminded her of her own journey, the struggle, the doubt, but ultimately the reward of stepping into the unknown. As the day blended into night, her heart raced with exhilaration. This was it. The moment of commitment to explore their expansive imaginations. But the exhilaration intertwined with the recognition of lingering fears. Would they progress further but also lose sight of their core values? As she tucked her twins into bed that night, Sarah wondered,
Could she pull this off, or would she falter under the weight of their mutual aspirations? The threads of doubt tangled in her mind, and she vowed to confront them head-on. The challenge ahead felt insurmountable, yet invigorating, a true measure of her evolution. But tomorrow, another challenge awaited. What would happen when the stories reached a critical audience outside their cherished cocoon?
Morning light streamed through the window as Sarah poured herself a strong cup of coffee, her nerves buzzing with anticipation. The day she feared was finally upon her. The day she would share her family's stories with the local book club, a critical audience she had previously only fantasized about. With every stirring of the spoon, doubt percolated alongside the coffee. Would they connect with the tales born of their family's creativity, or would the stories remain unrecognized in the void of judgment? Setting her mug down, Sarah gathered the story drafts scattered across the table, each one a fragment of their shared journey. The images her children had illustrated glared back at her, vibrant and alive, but also demanding a vulnerable admission. Here, laid bare, were her ambitions, woven intricately with her children's hopes. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up one of the drawings, a depiction of a treasure map that spanned an entire landscape of adventure, from enchanted forests to dusky caves. She inhaled deeply, reminding herself that this exposure wasn't solely about acceptance. It was a rite of passage into authenticity. Could she stay anchored in her truth despite the skepticism that might arise? As she entered the community center later that afternoon, an electric pulse of anxiety threaded through her thoughts. The room buzzed gently with familiar faces discussing books and ideas she cherished. Yet today, she wasn't just another participant. Today, she would stand as both a mother and a storyteller. The dichotomy swirled in her mind, filled with pride, yet fearful of the spotlight she'd chosen to step into. When her turn arrived, she took a moment, gripping the edge of the podium. The laughter and chatter faded into an anticipatory hush, and she felt like she was at the precipice of an uncharted cliff. "Every story we tell matters," she began, her voice firm but untested, "because every story is a reflection of our fears, our dreams, and our journey." As she unfolded their narrative, weaving in the essence of each of her children's contributions, Jake's boundless imagination, Emma's ability to draw emotions from a single scene, she watched as her words found resonance among the audience. Faces softened and engaged, leaning in to catch the next thought. She was no longer merely presenting, but inviting them into a hidden world filled with vulnerabilities and shared experiences. Despite the warm reception, a solitary voice ricocheted in her mind, gnawing at her confidence. What if it wasn't enough? The risk of exposure pierced through her enthusiasm, threatening to unveil the inadequacies she had tried so hard to conceal. Closing her eyes momentarily, she envisioned her children behind her, their innocent belief in her solidifying her resolve. Every map we create is a journey into the unknown, just as we navigate life itself. I want to invite you all to explore not only the adventures we've crafted, but the emotions that accompany them. The words poured out, a waterfall of passion that propelled her beyond doubt. Men and women began to nod, drawn into her tales, each acknowledging unspoken connections. There was something remarkable about sharing her truth, which transformed her vulnerability into strength. Each moment on that stage morphed into a personal victory, a revelation of hidden resilience. Questions poured in afterward, enthusiastic and probing. Listeners wanted to know more about the dynamic of co-creating stories with her children, how their collective creative energy bore fruit. Sarah felt exhilarated, the initial fear morphing instead into excitement, emboldening her to explore this newfound passion with her children further. Upon returning home, she sensed an undeniable shift in her perspective. She was no longer just a guide for her twins, but stepping into her role as a co-creator in this story of bold authenticity. Yet, as she settled the twins into bed, she couldn't shake off the thought that in sharing their journey with others, they had unintentionally invited scrutiny. The world outside their safe haven loomed larger, filled with both promise and uncertainty.
Tomorrow would not just involve crafting the next adventure. It would entail confronting a looming question. How do they navigate the line between creativity and vulnerability in the face of potential criticism? The morning after her presentation, Sarah awoke with an insistent buzzing in her mind, a stark contrast to the previous day's triumphant moments. As the sunlight filtered through the curtains, she felt a heaviness settle upon her. Doubts began to resurface, like unwelcome weeds in a garden she had just cultivated. Had she really made a connection, or was it simply a fleeting moment of enthusiasm that dissipated like mist? While preparing breakfast for the twins, she glanced at the collection of drawings displayed proudly on the fridge. Each vibrant image stirred a swirl of anxiety and excitement within her, reminding her of the delicate balance she now had to maintain. Was she brave enough to face her vulnerabilities daily, or would she retreat into the safety of obscurity? As she poured their cereal, an idea flickered in her mind. What if these fears served a purpose, igniting her journey of creation? "Okay, kids, after you finish breakfast, I have something special planned," she announced, trying to mask her uncertainty with enthusiasm. Jake and Emma looked up with bright eyes, their anticipation pushing aside any lingering self-doubt. After cleanup, they gathered at the dining table, surrounded by an array of colored pencils and blank sheets of paper. Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of exhilaration as they sat together, an unspoken pact to create. It was in these collaborative sessions that she felt the true essence of their family connection, ever evolving, intricately woven with dreams and light. "Let's create a story together," she proposed, her heart racing with the potential of this new endeavor. "I'll start and you both can add to it. How about a tale with a treasure hunt?" As Sarah began narrating the first line, she sensed her children's eagerness flowing into the narrative. It was as if their imaginations unraveled seamlessly into a collective adventure. Jake suggested the treasure be hidden in a mythical castle guarded by a dragon, while Emma drew a fierce yet comically clumsy creature who couldn't stop sneezing. Laughter rang out as their story unfurled, delicate threads connecting each of their ideas into a tapestry of uncomplicated joy. This moment freed her from concerns about judgments from the outside world. The collaboration summoned courage from deep within. The previously daunting question of vulnerability shifted into a different light. Here, seated at this table, creativity became their armor against the extraterrestrial sting of external criticism. However, an undertow of tension persisted in her mind. What if they ventured too far? What if the outside opinions of peers cut through their creative fabric? She pushed these thoughts aside as they dove deeper into their imaginative tale, though they lingered, gnawing on her resolve. As the hours slipped by, Sarah felt empowered. Co-creating with her children transformed her trepidation into exhilaration, allowing her to see her own potential alongside theirs. The act of storytelling became a bridge, strengthening their bond. Perhaps addressing the uncomfortable edges of vulnerability was just part of their shared narrative. After they wrapped up their story, an idea struck Sarah. What if she invited the book club members into an even larger collaboration? They could create a community project, a book woven from their family's adventures, inviting members to contribute. The thought sent a thrill through her body, but then uncertainty loomed once more. How would her peers react to this communal storytelling idea? As Sarah tucked her children into bed that night, she mulled over her proposition, excitement battling against hesitation. She had found a spark of courage deeply buried within her, but she also recognized the very real threat of criticism creeping back, threatening to extinguish her ignite for creative connection. Could she truly invite others to participate in her family's journey? Tomorrow would be a defining moment, a test of her resolve. The whispers of doubt began to merge with resolve, forming an internal battle that insisted on making itself heard. Would she rise to the occasion, or would she retreat into a familiar state of fear? The moment of decision loomed ahead, an impasse between her yearnings and her fears. Tomorrow would require not only creativity, but authenticity, pushing her to confront the ultimate vulnerability. The sun arose with a soft glow, and Sarah felt it warm her skin as she stood in front of the mirror. The weight of the day ahead threatened to crumble her resolve, but she inhaled deeply, using the air to fill herself with courage. Today was the day she'd share her notion of a collaborative book with her book club, a collection of creativity birthed from her family's adventures. Yet as she stared at her reflection, the shadows of doubt clung to her thoughts like stubborn dust. Breakfast was a whirlwind of positive energy and playful banter. Jake and Emma, buoyed by their last storytelling session, buzzed with anticipation.
As they recounted their favorite parts from the previous night's tale, Sarah felt her heart beat faster, caught between pride and the gnawing fear of external judgment. She urged herself to focus on the laughter, on the light emanating from her children. They believed in her, and that belief was a tether to her courage. "Let's get ready for our big adventure today," she prompted, disguising her trepidation behind the excitement of her children. She envisioned their families merging creatively, a tapestry woven not just by her own hands, but by the hands of those who would see beyond her imperfections. After sending the twins off to school, Sarah grappled with the best way to pitch her idea at the book club meeting. Should she present it as just a fleeting thought, or declare it a serious initiative? Her hand shook slightly as she typed an email to the group, playing with phrases that felt slightly too bold or woefully inadequate. Would they dismiss her or embrace her? Each sentence seemed an echo of her insecurities. Later that evening, the living room transformed into a workshop as she prepared for the meeting. The clutter of colored pencils and paper drifted around her like confetti from last night's explosion of creativity. Yet, instead of liberating her, the sight increased her anxiety. What if her peers didn't understand or support her vision? Would she be seen as the overly ambitious mother desperately seeking validation? The book club meeting began as any other, with casual exchanges of book recommendations. Sarah's stomach churned as the moment approached. At what point would she disrupt the familiar rhythm? She could feel the unfamiliar tension in the air, her heart racing against the overwhelming silence that followed. "Hey everyone," she finally began, her voice slightly shaky. "I have an idea I want to share." The room quieted, and she sensed the weight of attention pressing down, her mind swirling with a mix of excitement and fear. "I was thinking," she continued, "that perhaps we could co-create a story, a book that captures our family's experiences intertwining with imagination. Stories that come from all of us, exploring different adventures together." The energy in the room was palpable, shifting between interest and skepticism. Questions sprung up like wildflowers at her words, a healthy mix of curiosity and wariness. What if, instead of unity, her proposition ignited divisions? As they peppered her with questions, her heart pounded. Was she losing them? Or was she instead igniting the spark she desperately sought? One woman, Karen, an artist she respected, asked incredulously, "And what if it fails? What if no one contributes?" A rush of panic coursed through Sarah, the question hitting precisely the fear she had wrestled with. "What if it does?" she responded, her voice firmer than expected, surprising herself. "But think about what we would gain, even if it flounders. We'd be vulnerable together, sharing stories, and maybe, just maybe, creating something beautiful along the way." The room sighed, a shift palpable in the air. She could feel the weight of her words hanging there, a moment of quiet contemplation. Would they band together or shy away, overwhelmed by the prospect? As she wrapped up the evening, Sarah felt lighter, yet uncertain of what lay ahead, a delicate balance of collaboration and courage. Fear still threatened to seep in, but she remained resolute, consciousness becoming a battlefield between vulnerability and strength. Tomorrow would be crucial, revealing whether her leap had inspired others to jump alongside her, or if she would once again be left standing alone in the vast uncertainty. What would happen next? Could she rally the support of her peers, or would fear once again tighten its grip around her creativity? The morning sun poured through the blinds, illuminating the remnants of last night's book club meeting.
Sarah stirred awake, feeling the weight of possibilities thrum in her chest. She had bared her vision, dared to dream of collaborative storytelling, and the fears that gripped her began to falter with each passing minute. In the kitchen, she poured her coffee, the aroma buoying her spirits. Her children buzzed with excitement as they recounted the tales woven through their imaginary adventures. They had loved the idea of crafting a book, their imaginations bursting at the seams with ideas, and she felt the warmth of their enthusiasm coalescing around her. "What do you think today will bring?" she asked, a hint of uncertainty still underpinning her words. "Maybe everyone will want to help," Jake replied, his eyes shining with innocent faith. Sarah clung to the hope exemplified in Jake's response. After all, this venture went beyond her. It was also about building connections and unearthing stories that made them who they were. As the day wore on, Sarah busied herself with preparations for the second meeting, the anticipation bubbling inside her. She envisioned not only her children's contributions, but those of her neighbors, each line of text serving as a thread connecting their lives. By the time evening arrived, she felt an electric charge course through her, surpassing the nagging whispers of doubt. When she arrived at the community center, Sarah caught glimpses of familiar faces, the kind that had once echoed her fears back to her, yet now they held promise. As they gathered, she noticed Karen smiling, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. "I've thought a lot about what you suggested," she said. "I think we could try it together. I can contribute illustrations." Her response ignited a flicker of excitement around the room. One by one, other members raised their hands, suggesting ideas, volunteering their artistic flair, and committing themselves to their own contributions. As they began brainstorming, joy echoed through the space, creating a symphony of voices full of delight and creativity. "I can write a chapter about the adventures of friendly dragons," another member exclaimed, laughter spilling over the words. Sarah felt a crescendo of connection swell around her. These were stories woven from personal experiences, and every voice stepped forth with collective courage. Courage, a testament to the bonds they had created. In that moment, Sarah realized she was no longer standing at the precipice of vulnerability. She had traversed the tumultuous waters of fear to find herself embracing a new confidence. Each suggestion, each idea, spun with laughter and camaraderie, threaded through their conversations, reminded her of how far she had come. As discussions unfolded, one member suggested, "Let's begin with the theme of courage, finding treasures hidden within ourselves." The essence of the idea resonated deeply. It implicated a narrative not only of adventure, but of growth, mirroring her own journey of transformation. "Absolutely," Sarah affirmed, her voice steady with recognition of what this meant to her, not just as a mother, but as a creator. "Our stories are about the treasures we unearth in vulnerability, and each of us can contribute how we've navigated our fears. It's a journey of discovering our inner strength." As the meeting concluded, there was a palpable sense of accomplishment in the air. Each member had embraced Sarah's vision, and she felt gratitude washing over her. They were embarking on this project together, unraveling their fears and amplifying each other's voices. Returning home, Sarah sat with her twins, a sense of fulfillment wrapping around her heart. "We've got a project now, and I need your help," she announced. Their eyes sparkled with wonder as they leaned closer, intrigued by what lay ahead. That night, as they gathered around the table drafting ideas, Sarah felt no hints of the trepidation that once held her captive. She had embraced her role, not just as a mother, but as an integral part of something greater. The stories evolving before their eyes reflected their shared resilience, with each sentence resonating with a newfound strength that demanded recognition. Days turned into weeks, and the collaborative book began taking shape. Each evening, Sarah and her twins worked together, bouncing ideas off one another. As they transcribed their tales, she found herself cherishing every moment spent engaged with her children, the process reinforcing the family bond that had grown ever stronger. Recognition of their progress soon rippled through the community. News of their collaborative book spread, inspiring deeper connections with their neighbors. Sarah finally felt grounded, a wave of confidence washing over her. She had become part of a collective narrative, thriving not just in her creations, but in the connections they cultivated along the way, sharing laughter and supporting each other in their vulnerabilities. One afternoon, as they finished final touches on the manuscript, Sarah brought the completed draft to the group, a sense of pride enveloping her heart. As she presented their hard work, she realized this was not merely a culmination of stories. It stood as a testament to transformation, hers, her children's, and their community. They were not merely sharing tales of adventures. They had conquered insecurities and learned to embrace vulnerabilities as banners of strength. At that moment, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. She had transcended her vulnerability.
Past confines, standing tall amid new horizons. In the following weeks, during the book launch event, the air thrummed with excitement. The room was filled with familiar faces, warmth radiating between them as their joined hands cradled their newfound narrative. They were ready to celebrate their journey both individually and collectively. As she held the completed book, she reflected on the incredible transformation she had undergone. Sarah was no longer merely a ghost haunting her home. She had stepped into her own brilliance, recognizing her worthiness and establishing her place. She had conquered fears, achieved collaboration, and fostered connections that transcended art, the true treasures hidden within her journey. As the applause reverberated through the room, Sarah smiled at her twins, feeling the pride swell within. Their eyes sparkled with joy and validation, an affirmation that they could indeed achieve great things, not just through their creativity, but by embracing and celebrating one another. The time had come to celebrate the triumph of their journey. This successful collaboration laid the groundwork for their future endeavors, reinforcing the belief that the stories they told were far more impactful when centered on love and resilience. With a final bow, Sarah felt the embrace of recognition, not just personally, but within the connections they'd formed. A cherished moment. She was ready, not to hide, but to shine brightly, illuminating the path for her family and community. Now she stood proud, ready to inspire others in overcoming their fears. Would she continue to lead them towards shared adventures? Would they craft more stories together? Only time would tell. But she knew the journey ahead would be woven with the magic of courage, collaboration, and undeniable love. This moment was transformative, a beautiful reflection of her growth, and as she stepped forward, she felt an unwavering belief in the human spirit, in her story, and in the ongoing narrative of her life. Now, to everyone watching, your support matters. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It makes a difference in sharing these tales of personal overcoming. Comment your reactions and theories about Sarah's incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformative conclusion.